I think it was pretty much between, or let me say, before 1957. I remember a few days in wintertime and also summertime. In wintertime, we usually have our spot in a little place called Ahiarmiut Elder, a little fishing place, not far from a radio station. But according to my parents, I was born just outside of Ennadai Lake at Hicks Lake. We're not sure about the date and days and all sorts of. It wasn't important those days. But I go by what government gave me as birthday, those kind of official dates. So back to Ennadai Lake, I remember walking back and forth quite a few times to the radio station, holding hand with my mom like that, or sometimes at the back of her mountain, with other people, sometimes alone. And a few times I remember when there are lots of there's an animal there, but a few times I remember there was lots of other people outside of the Ennadai Lake radio station. A few times I remember sliding down from the hill right up to the buildings. I remember one time Laugrand was sliding with us. I remember him well, and many times with my mother. And walking around in search for something to eat. Of course, in winter time it's very hard. Everything's covered with snow. But I'm not sure exactly where, but I was with her, and she handed me a little bowl and said, "Eat little, don't swallow it, but want me to chew, just sort of feel the texture. So it's almost like eating." So I remember those days, and I remember a few things that are not so pleasant. I remember I was with my mother. We seldom go inside the buildings. It was one of these days, I think they invited us. I'm not sure how it started, but she was led to drink something. I think later on realized it was liquor. And I remember going home, she was staggering, riding like that. And I remember all of a sudden I was sideways. I think she fell or passed out or something, I'm not sure. That part I remember quite well. And another one was another visit to radio station. Sometimes they would signal you like, "Go back, don't come, go back," like that. And one of the visits was like in again, and I sometimes she was given tobacco and a bit of food and stuff. I know, remember one guy reeling, doing some gestures, like sexual gestures. She was reluctant at first. I was in Maudik, and I don't know what triggered her on giving. And the guy, I remember how he looked like. He has a beard. And took me out of her back and make his advances to my mother. That I remember as a child, and it never goes away. And after we left, I think it was 59, no, 57, toward 57, to second move to North Hunnic Lake. That part I remember quite well because I was a big boy. I remember other events at Ennadai Lake. I remember the day it was spring, and when we land at Ahiarmiut, or North Hunnic Lake, Overdale Lake, it was a nice spring day, and the tents were already set up, probably from Henry Voice's Hudson Bay Trading Post, which is quite far, yeah, for healthy person, a 3-day walk from North Hunnic Lake. The tents were already up for each family, and in each tent there's a little box of food, I guess dry goods and stuff, whatnot. They might call them starvation boxes. In each tent there's a box, and in the course of the days and weeks and months, it seems very long, but looking back, it's not long. I think on this move, terrible, more than the first move to North Hunnic Lake, this move was move of no return. There's no way they could walk back to Ennadai Lake from North Hunnic Lake. And that's where all these terrible things happen. And the boxes ran out quickly, and men know the area, they travel to like trading posts like North Hunnic Lake, probably badly than Churchill. The men know the area. They can walk to Hudson Bay Post to badly. For a healthy person, it's about 3 days, more than that men were telling me. And I remember my family were neighbors to our shaman, Pangalat. We still were in a society where half the shaman, then the leader, then there's your mom and dad. We were his neighbors. Not very long after that, when people start to get ill or starve or all those things, and he was one of the very first one to starve or die. And this was the very powerful man. Not too long ago, everyone respected, and one of the first to to die. And I remember the day I can hear the conversation of my mother visiting frequently to their tent. And I remember when he passed away, I can hear all the commotion. And when it was time for my late father Mickey and brother Silas Ilangayo, that 3-day walk to Patley. And I remember my mother was in charge of me and my late sister Cookie. She would put up old fishnet that's not far from our tent. Then at night, I guess the morning comes, she would check the old fishnet again. Then a few times she would come back with 1 or 2 or 3 ptarmigan. Then we have something to eat. And my late father keep many slips, Hudson Bay slips, and he keep several Hudson Bay slips, and those walks, and I have with me today of that day when he went with my brother. And although Ahiarmiut were there, according to my brother, Laughrigh was there, and probably his father, Ahiarmiut. And Laughrigh, I guess, went home earlier than my mom and my father and Silas. Right away, I don't know why I was in bed. I think I was in bed. And someone came. It was Laughrigh. I called him Panya. I called him my nephew. And he has a fresh bannet. And it was for me. That I remember, it was like yesterday. I remember he came and he said, well, but I always remember that. During the files, my late brother died not too long ago. About 10 years ago, I was telling his story to him. And he really got excited. He said, I remember the day. I remember Laughrigh telling me that he will go home early and he will bring Paddy to Hickock with me. And my brother said, yeah, that's what he told me on that day at Padley. Oh, it was good story. So then other things that I remember is not so much among my peers, other children, because soon we were moved into family, friends groups, but still in one general area. And I don't remember the 3-day walk with my family, but I remember being outside when my family went along with all the Ahiarmiut to Hudson Bay Post. They make all that exodus because in a very short stay, up to 7 people lost their lives due to starvation, cold exposure, and coupled by murder. And after we stayed for several days at King Alruelig, Hudson Bay Post, then police aircraft came. I think a couple of times in the course of the day, maybe more. And it took us all down to Eskimo Point, or Fet today. It was, I think it was in February. And when we landed, it's almost like whole Inuit Nuklit came down to shores of Hudson Bay and greet all these starving Eskimos from Ennadai Lake. There were so many. In those days, I don't know how to count, but there were lots. There were many. And I remember when we deplaned, some healthy, burly man just pulled me out of my mother's back and kissed me, goodnight me all over. And I later learned he was my uncle, Uncle Casimir Nudahung. And after we went on board to the land, igloos were already made for Ahiarmiut. Each family has a new igloo around the RCMP detachment. And some of it stayed at the RCMP warehouse, which still stands today. And I remember the day we arrived, our new igloo. I remember one of the constables, Jimmy Gibbons, helped to bring in cable skins for Christians. I remember him that night bringing skins to help us a bit. And it was also the time where lots of things happened before we arrived that need to be investigated by the police or authorities. Order was given to all Ahiarmiut to do not leave your igloo, no visitors, etc., etc. And I think they even have guards, local people, local men. And I don't know how my uncle always managed at nighttime to come into our tent to bring me goods, cookies with raisin in them. Never failed. Only at night he would come. He didn't explain how he got through, but he was there. So I remember those nights. And I guess after the investigations were over, that we can mix around with other Inuit, Ahiarmiut and coastal people, finally mix with people. Then almost immediately authorities think, I think at least, Ahiarmiut are at their happiest when they are out on the land somewhere. So many of us were told, just camp out for the summer outside of Akviat or Eskimo Point. I remember one summer we were out, and someone local came by dock team in summertime, bringing supplies for us. Edward Nipkwaki, I remember him dropping supplies to us, which is not far. Then before we were moved again, this time north of Akviat to Whale Cove area, the Rankin area. And I think I mentioned it to you before. There was a big drum dance at one of the big tents, and it was pretty normal, just like any other drum dance. The night went about midway through. Then there was a big commotion, someone barging in, and it was so. I think he was off-duty policeman, Corporal Gallagher. They call him Big Gallagher, or some people call him Big Forehead. Auto, he has a big forehead, so some people call him Auto, the man with the big forehead. He came, and my father was drum dancing, and he forcefully grabbed him, arm locking like this, and tossed him towards the women. And the song ended abruptly. And also the drum was damaged. And people that were in the audience went through the back of the tent, the side of the tent, went front, and it emptied very quickly. And I think I later learned that someone complained to authorities, all this drumming, hollering, and chanting. My guess, then he had to take action, not in a good manner. I think it might have been prospectors living nearby, and get back to North Handic Lake, when men were looking for food for their families. Three guys, I guess, were looking just outside our perimeter, and they come across a cabin at Ray Lake, which is not far from our tenting area at Teoghalik. They must have looked what's inside, either just carry on or maybe there's something in there. I don't know what made them to go in. Quick answer is get food to feed their family, and they did, and took food, and very soon they were reported, and authorities came and arrested these three men, and one of them was Moklugnak, and one of them was Uhuto, and I was flown to Oakviet to be tried with the judge, and they were doing hard labor, back and forth carrying rocks. I was told by Moklugnak himself, and also crushing rocks with a sledgehammer. He said, Uhuto crushed the rock so hard that rocks flew into his head and blind him for life. And he lived for a long time, Uhuto. After we moved to Oakviet in '69, as a young man, I make effort to visit him. He called me a name, but I can't remember. Living alone now, separate from his wife. But he is so independent. He's a blind man, everyone knows. He can shop on his own, get ice from outside, and it's living in the dark. So when you visit him, it's very dark. But he always had to, he could recognize my voice. visit him. And one visit, he was down on the floor with pliers and wire. He said, what are you making? He showed me he was making syllables, E, B, D, G, G. I was so amazed. This is working like this. And I could see E, B, D, I, E, O, A, B, B, B. Oh, it was so, it's hard to believe. He want to do things like that. But a very sad ending how he died. I think I was given that.